And so, my dear ones, we are already moving toward the end of this month. Indeed, it's Memorial Weekend, and it's a wonderful time to pause for a moment, get our priorities straight, and remember who and what we are. And in this time now, we certainly honor all those who have given everything they could give to support the principles of our country, the principles of unity and harmony and oneness, the principles of liberty and freedom and justice and the right to a good life for all people, that respect for life, all life. And it's a very noble, noble thing to go forth to serve. And so we recognize all those who have given their lives in support of a noble cause, and those who still continue to do so, show up and be ready to go forth into danger sometimes in order to uphold the principles of true democracy, wherein everybody has a place and everybody's place is respected. And we honor them today very especially by having our wonderful picture here by one of our local artists, Matea. And it speaks volumes to me. I love it. I bought it at an auction in support of a noble cause too. And it's exactly how I see us, you know, all those doves of light and life and peace and all that is good and whole and wholesome. And I know that one day all of those who serve our country in uniform, all of those wonderful people will be, they certainly will be, builders of peace, protectors of the peace. They will enjoy deeply their work and be eager and keen. They will be a Peace Corps. That's what all the armies of the world I'm seeing will be, Peace Corps, and the protectors of our noble truths, the respecters of life and living, those whom we can trust and look up to. That's what I see. That's my story when it comes to armed forces. That's my story as I see it. But we're very, very grateful to all of those who serve. All of those who serve are very, very grateful indeed and go into harm's way for noble causes. And so today we're looking at something that maybe you and I can achieve and accomplish, and that's something new, something wonderful, make something great happen by means of you and me. And it's not going to happen for us until we examine the stories that we have created in our own lives. Very few of the stories that we, embrace are our own. Most of them are imported, and some of them are self-made. And we have to be very careful about stories. Now, storytelling has always had a life and a very important place in every society, in every culture since time immemorial. You always had your storytellers, and they were very highly regarded in the community. And throughout all of the scriptures, you'll read story upon story upon story. When you want to get a point across, the best way to get it across is through a story or through a picture. Pictures speak louder than words, that's for sure, just as music does, just as poetry does, and so on, the arts, dance. So the question for you and for me as we go about our life and living is to be cognizant of the stories that we have looping in our minds all the time, the same stories that show up all of the time. And some of those stories are good, and some of them are not so good, and some of them are downright scary, and some of them are downright absolutely off the wall, erroneously occupying space in our consciousness. And we need to take a look at those looping stories that go on in our minds and clear out all the horror stories that we've allowed ourselves, the fear-filled stories that we've allowed ourselves to entertain. the edgy stories that we allow ourselves to continue to entertain. It's time for us all now, and there's no better time, and Reverend Catherine was making a reference to the importance of storytelling too, but it's time for you and for me to create a new story. And that's why when I hear people say we're going to go back to normal, I say, oh God, prevent us from going back to normal. Normal didn't fully work for us all. We want to go forward from the future. Forward from the future, not from the past. We want to go forward from the future as we envision that future to be, so that our upcoming generations can enjoy a more peaceful and safe and creative place to be. So that's a thought that maybe we could entertain. Let's always keep the future in mind in this present moment now as we go forward into it. And let's create our present time from the future, not the past. We will learn from the past. Absolutely, we will learn from the past. And we'll take what's good from the past with us. But we don't want to go back to anything ever, no matter what it is. We want to go forward into better, is what we want to do. And we can. Now, some of the stories that we're entertaining are not so good for us because they are stories of separation and division. There's stories of misunderstanding and all that goes with that, all the different kinds of intolerances that go with that. And intolerance is not a good thing. It keeps us divided and it keeps us separated. And of course, the judgmental stories are like hammers that pound, the jackhammers that pound the concrete and break it all up. We have to stop that because that's pure spiritual nonsense, condemnation and judgment. It really is. And all of us do enough of it, and God knows it's time to clean it up and clear it out and not be one with that kind of thinking or feeling anymore. Because I have to say, who am I to know what's going on behind anyone's eyeballs unless I sit down, encounter them, and listen to them and hear what that is. And then maybe have some kind of response to that, but not a judgment. But a response, an idea. And to listen with respect. Before I make my mind up about who someone is or what someone is or who they are or what they are. But then again, actions do speak louder than words. So how we interact with each other gives out clues, gives out clues. But again, no matter how strong the clues are, not to rush to judgment, It was, I believe, Michelangelo who said that genius is eternal patience. Genius is eternal patience. And patience certainly is something that we can never have too much of, isn't it? And the thing about the way we think and the thinking we think is, it's just so potent and powerful. Because every thought is an energy that creates something. Every thought is an energy that supports a nucleus of an idea. And when the nucleus gets enough energy poured into it, it fizzes out into attracting all of that energy back to where it came from. And you and I don't want to be sending out energy that's going to come back at us and bite our ankles. It's not what we want to do. And those of us who are truth students and students of science of mind and spirit know that every thought makes a difference and every thought creates something. Even if it's just a spark of the energy that will go to the nucleus and empower it And when there are enough sparks, there you are. And then one day that comes right back and envelops us like a boomerang. So in our stories that loop in our minds, we want to make sure that there's nothing going out there, spinning out there, that we don't want to come back at us. Judgment is mine, say the law. The law of life is going to take care of everything. You needn't worry about it. Never wish anybody to get their comeuppance, because that'll come back at you. The law, the universal law, the principle of life is just. So we need to stop the language of, I hope they get their just desserts, etc., their comeuppance and so on. That's not our business. It really is not our business. Our business is to know something so that we can understand something. So out of the understanding, we can love a little more. We can appreciate a little more. We can be kinder a little more. We can be patient a little more. That's how the energy of life works. And the energy of love is the most potent energy of all. Love will do the deed, for with love, stony hearts will bleed. Love, when it is enough, can heal anything. As Emmett Fox says, there's nothing that love cannot heal. Nothing. Enough love cannot heal. If love be love, that is, not just this energy that we give and withhold, give and withhold, give and withhold, give and withhold. I don't know what that is, but it's not love. Because love once given remains. Love once received remains. That's how life begins. The givingness of spirit, in loving energy creates something. And what it creates, it moves into. And it never leaves. It never leaves. So as we point a finger at a Hitler or whatsoever, we have to remember within that Hitler, there is that pristine kernel of that love of spirit that is burning and flaming brightly as ever it was in the beginning. It's just that a Hitler is totally unconscious with regard to it, hasn't recognized it, hasn't connected consciously yet with it. But it never leaves us, never, no matter what we get up to. It never leaves us. That's why we can say everybody is the image and the likeness of the divine creator. And therefore everyone is worthy in some way of that acknowledgement. But it takes a very masterful, spiritual, realized person to go beyond all of the appearances and do like Gandhi as he was falling as the result of the person who killed him. He raises his hand and he namastays the person who took the human life from him as he was falling. Now there's somebody who knew that life is totally, totally emerged in that sea of life and light and love and peace and beauty and power. But when we come into physical form, we're coming into great density. Great density. This is a dense plane. It's a three-dimensional plane. Beautiful and amazing as it is, it's a three-dimensional dense plane. And it's easy to forget. We fall into spiritual amnesia when we fall into life here. And then we have to wake up and remember who we are and what we are. So maybe when you and I are with cranky people and all of that, we could just maybe pause for a moment without judgment, without rushing there, or without chupsing, or without wanting to leave the room or cross the street or whatever when we see somebody coming. And remember, that's the tabernacle of the most high energy there is. Now, I know it's not going to happen when you or I are tetchy ourselves. It rarely does. But if you and I stay consciously connected with our source and stay in the energy, the interior energy of that blissful state of being, we have much more of a chance of being able to navigate this outer three-dimensional life and living in this world more kindly, more patiently, more understandingly. And I think that's the only thing that's going to get us from all this fisticuffing each other and all the division that we experience and see in our world today. Because whether we like it or not, we are the one life in many different kinds of expression, and we all belong to each other, like it or not. We all belong to each other. And when you begin to have glimpses of that, it's an amazing thing. It's a wonderful thing. And it stops us from being so hoity-toity and so imperious at times and so superior at times with regard to each other and ourselves. Because every single person that crosses your path and mine is a mirror, and I can only see in that what's within myself. It may be dormant, but it is there. I can only see myself. Because we are everything and everyone, and everything and everyone is each one of us, because life is all the time the one life flowing through us. It's the very same life. We all came from the very same life as the very same life to be the very same life. To live and move and have our being consciously in that one life. Now, it's when we go unconscious that we get into trouble. And so the idea is not to wake up in consciousness, because we're conscious even when we're sleeping, but to become consciously conscious. That's to be Christed, to be realized, consciously conscious. The realized individual is the consciously conscious individual, looks out and sees only one life and knows it is a part in that one life. One life. It's an awesome thing. And when you come close to that understanding at times, it's incredible. And it may only last for a second or two, but nevertheless, it's well worth the endeavor. And what is the endeavor? To stay conscious, to stay awake, to stay alert, to stay, and what does that mean? It means stay connected. And not back away from what we don't understand or what we think is nothing like me and nothing to do with me. It does. It is. We're all like each other. We all have something to do with each other. But you know what? Nobody's going to really understand that until you stop taking anybody's word for it and start trying it out. You have to test it for yourself. Because, as Ernest Holmes reminds us, you're not going to find what I'm talking about in a talk, as he said. He said, you're not going to find that truth in a talk like the one I'm giving now, is what he said. You're not going to find it in a book, etc. The only place you're going to find it is within yourself. And if you don't find it within yourself, you're not going to find it. The truth is in you, and it's the truth that can set you free. And me too. But how to get at it, how to access it, there's only one way. Be quiet. Be still. Stop all the activity and listen. That's the only thing. Listen. Well, how do I get to listening? A good way to do that is to focus on your breath. You may get sick and tired of people say, just breathe consciously. Just focus on your breath. But you know what? It works. It really and truly works. And you won't know that until you keep trying it, not once or twice, but until you get it. And I don't know how long that will be. How far is your mental reach, as Ernest Holmes would ask, because that's how far as you can go in demonstrating your good, how far your mental reach is. Stories. You think you have none? Of course you have. I love to remind us all again of the story again and again and again of the little boy in the primary school, no more than maybe 9 years of age, who adored horses. His father was a stable hand in one of the great racing arenas where they trained wonderful horses. And he always had a vision that one day he was going to be looking after horses and he was going to have his own wonderful stables. And he was given the opportunity to express himself when the teacher asked them all to write what they imagined their future was going to be like when they were young adults. He had no problem. He wrote all about his horses, all about his dream. He even drew pictures of what he considered his wonderful stables and land was going to look like. When he got back his paper, it was a C-. Teacher said, your writing is very good, but it's so unrealistic, really. I want you to write it again and write something that you could do and could achieve. He didn't, because he knew that's what he was going to do and what was going to happen. And later on in his life, he came back and visited his teacher, and he was the proud owner of a very successful training school for horses, having had produced all kinds of winners. That little boy didn't allow anybody to steal his dream, his story. He didn't allow anybody to change his story. He just kept that story alive within himself, and he knew that he knew that he knew. Nothing else interested him. Nothing else caught his attention. That was his only focus, and it happened. So, the question is, what kind of stories are we entertaining in our minds? And do they need adjustments? And remember, nothing is too good to create a story around, because you of yourself are not going to realize it, but you, in conjunction, in connection with the source, with the power, with the energy of the creative process within you, is going to realize it. And what's more, the pressure is off. You don't have to detail the outline of how it's going to happen. You have to know what it is. You have to be able to see what it is. You have to be able to envision what it is. You have to be able to feel what it is. You have to jump up into that dream and start interacting with all the characters in it and start to do what you would do if you were in your dream realized already. That is all you have to do, but how it's going to happen is none of your business. That's outlining, and we don't do that in the creative process on the spiritual side of life. We just know what we know, and we know, of course, of myself, I'm not going to be able to do this, but getting out of the way of the power and the presence of the creative force within me and just going along with its flow will bring that on home to me. It's a mighty thing. And when it happens, oh my goodness me, you think, well, I don't know how that happened. You weren't supposed to know how it happened. You were just supposed to know what you wanted to happen. So we keep our mind on our good, and we never look at the problems. We take our mind off the problems in connection with it. We just keep our mind on the prize. Your eye on the prize, your eye on the prize. And then you respond to any little inkling that comes to you with regard to realizing your dream. Your stories end. All of us have beautiful stories somewhere tucked away, but very few of us get to the end of the story because we give up, we give in, and we say, well, who am I to think that I could do that? Who are you not to think that? Who are you not to know that? Who are you not to believe that? Only believe, all things are possible, only believe. Act as though it were so in your mind, and so it will be. That's the first place. Believe it in your mind, your heart, and your soul. And support your belief, and don't deviate from it, and it will be so. Don't fall by the wayside, but if you do, get up, get right back on into that wonderful vehicle that's taking you into the dream realized, into the story completed. And then start a new story, and another one, and another one, and another one, because it's endless, the ability that you have to accomplish, to achieve, and to succeed. It's endless. But most of us let ourselves be absolutely downtrodden, not by anything or anyone out there, but by our own negative thoughts and our own lack of awareness and understanding of the power within us that can move it through us. But if we think of our own little selves, it's up to me, my little self, never going to happen. This won't come from the small self, the small human self. It has to come from the great self, the one self, the only self. And it will. Don't take my word for it, never do. Just test everything out. Prove it to yourself. Prove to me herewith. Put me to the test, says the scriptures. Put me to the test and see if the gates of heaven, the windows of heaven, all of heaven won't open and pour copious blessings upon you. So I have to leave you at that because the time she go fly, and I must now step aside and allow Reverend Catherine to come forward and share something lovely with us. I'll be back in a moment. Come on up, Reverend Catherine.
This is the time in our service where we like to share our mission statement, which is to honor your presence, to nurture your spirit, and to enrich the lives of all we serve. And we do that by sharing messages from some of our members and friends who tell us how they're doing. I am like many people in that I have stayed healthy during this time. It is so shocking to read how so many people were so very, very sick, and of course, how many people died. I know that I have chafed at times with the isolation, but at some point, I just stopped being disappointed and wishing things were different. I simply let the angry go. When I did that, I realized that I just felt better. And I could use my time however I wanted, and so I did. Now, as we hear a lot about opening up, I find that I'm in no rush. This has been a special time, and I decided that I can let it be. Thank you for your encouragement during this whole event.
Thank you, Reverend Catherine. These are wonderful messages that we get from our beautiful members and friends, and we're always delighted to receive them. And I tell you, there's no one more than we who want to be in the presence of our beautiful people again. And we are working very diligently toward it. It may seem to be slow, but we would ask your patience because everything we're doing with all of you in mind. And it's amazing the different opinions that are amongst us all, but we have to take in the overall view, the overall picture, and make everything as wonderfully welcoming and safe and secure as we possibly can. We have only your good in mind ever, and only that. So it's going to be July, and it's going to be mid-July. And by then, we should have everything set. And people who have been so diligently serving our support staff and our staff will have had an opportunity, after we have everything in place, to have a few days away. And that includes me. I've been given my orders by the board to to make sure I have some days before we open up. So we're getting there as quickly as we can, and please know that there is only the one thing we have in mind, and it's you and what's best for you. So be patient, dear hearts. It's going to happen sooner than you might imagine, because time does fly. And who can believe we're at the end of May already? My goodness. May on the way out. May giving way to June. And then in July, we will have that wonderful soft opening, and we will be a physical community again. And we're also looking forward to it, but we're deeply grateful to the very small and mighty crew that have sustained all that we are doing for the past more than a year. So we still know for each one of you that doesn't deviate or it doesn't lessen your highest and your most wondrous unfolding good. And you do know, because I've said it often enough, we're here for you however we can be here for you. So if you don't let us know how that is or can be, then we just don't know. But nevertheless, whether we know it or not, we're always holding you close to heart and mind and knowing your highest and most glorious good. So now it's time to be grateful. It's time to give thanks for our daily bread. It's time to give thanks for our enoughness. It's time to give thanks for that wonderful sense of generosity of spirit that moves through us, that we're able, no matter what, to share from our daily bread, so that others may have a little more in their daily bread. And I want to thank you for that. It's just awesome that we can, with so few of us here, still represent fully our community and the work that we're engaged in. So thank you. Please join me in knowing this. Divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to bless, to prosper all those who give and all those who receive. I rejoice in the sharing of my good, and I release my gift with love. And so it is. And now we're going to have our prayer together, the prayer that unites us all, one mind and one heart. And we're going to be specially aware of all those who serve their country, and especially those who are abroad. And we're going to know for all people everywhere peace, 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 and goodwill, and the safety and security of all those who serve. And so please know with me right now, as we join our minds and join our hearts and open ourselves up to blessing life and all life, and especially our wonderful, wonderful people who put their own lives at risk to maintain and sustain the life of all. I know divine love enfolds me, divine life leads me, divine light lives in me, divine wisdom inspires me, divine compassion expresses through me, and divine power protects me. All that I am is Spirit's life and expression. It is good and very good. With deep joy and generosity filling me, I go forward now in sacred service, supporting a compassionate world that works for all. I move through my days with grace and ease, in peace and love, in health and wellness, in fullness and plenty, and in loving relationship with all. What I now know for myself, with blessing and in deep gratitude, I know for all life. There is only God, there is only God. There is only God, and most especially showing up by means of you and by means of me. And so it is. So stay connected until we meet again and before we have our peace song. And know that you're loved and know that you're cherished. So I leave you as the children do. And so it is. Peace song and ending.